she is in no mood.
No, still not on the Raihn Train.
No.
I never got off the Raihn Train, but that's fine. But, so much growth happens when we try and then we struggle and then we try again. That's how we learn things.
Welcome back to the chat, Villain and Vale. Villain? Welcome back to the chat.
That could be their couple name. Villain. Hi, and welcome to Romantasy Remedy. I'm Whitney.
And I'm Kenzie. We're sisters-in-law and book besties who thrive on daily doses of magic and romance from our favorite fantasy stories.
So, if your emotional support animal is a dragon and your therapist has shadow powers, you're in the right place. Thanks for being here and for liking, rating, and following our show. Before we get started, this is our official content warning. Simply put, Romantasy Remedy is a podcast for grown-ups. The topics and language will reflect that. Please listen at your comfort level.
And one more thing before we dive into The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent, our spoiler warning. For most of the episode, there will only be spoilers for chapters 1 through 7, as well as the first 2 books in this series, The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and 6 Scorched Roses. But at the end of today's episode, we will have our spoiler central segment where we make connections to events later in the book and the entire Crowns of Nyaxia series. Don't worry, we'll give another big warning before spoiler central begins.
One of our goals at Romantasy Remedy is to highlight how books in this genre inspire readers. When we see characters facing fears, overcoming challenges, and growing into their potential, it helps us to do the same. So each week, we'll choose a quote from the chapters we read to be an affirmation, a phrase to empower and motivate us. This week's affirmation says, "We have enough to try." We love this because we all have times when we need the reminder that all that's truly required is our best efforts, not a flawless performance. Say it louder for the people in the back like me, who are perfectionists. We base this affirmation on words spoken by Jasmine. Keep listening to get all the details surrounding this amazing quote later in the episode. And don't forget, you can find a printable version of the affirmation in the show notes in case you want to stick it on your mirror or fridge or wherever. And with that, Kenzie is going to recap what happened in this week's section of chapters.
So excited we're starting this book. All right. So Oraya is deep in her grief, rage, and I hate Raihn, but unfortunately he's hot era. She's mourning Vincent and resenting the husband she was forced to marry while also trying not to implode from emotional whiplash. For real. Raihn brings her to the throne room meeting where Carissa tries to seat her in the naughty toddler corner, but Raihn promptly relocates her to the dais beside him. Once his queen, always his queen, even if she would happily stab him with a spoon. The Risha nobles shuffle in with the enthusiasm of wet cats. Martis, brother of the very important noble Simon, immediately starts reciting his Raihn doesn't deserve the throne because he's turned TED Talk. Raihn holds it together until Martis insults Oraya. Asteris says hello, and Martis says goodbye. Still, the nobles refuse to bow until General Vale bursts through the door like the icon he is, drops to his knees, and swears loyalty. The nobles suddenly remember how kneecaps work and bow too. Later in the strategy meeting, Vale basically tells Raihn protecting Oraya is a stupid idea, and Raihn basically replies, I literally don't care. So meanwhile, Oraya pulls off a jailbreak from her fancy prison bedroom using night fire. She's able to do so thanks to some encouragement from departed daddy dearest Vincent. And she sneaks through secret tunnels to Vincent's underground study where the grief hits her hard. And she finds a communication device but has to stash it when Raihn shows up and he emotionally strips himself bare by saying the only thing he doesn't hate about this situation is her. And Oraya hits back with, "You killed my father." Conversation over. Back to her room, Oraya contacts Jasmine. Jasmine's ready to ride or die mostly die, probably die. Together, they form a plan to attack the Raihn Armory in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Kenz, for that recap. I am so excited to
Neat.
be jumping into Ashes and the Star-Cursed King today.
Mhm.
And just like we did with the Serpent Wings of Night, I wanted to start by reading the first line of this book. Here's what it said. The king knew in this moment that his greatest love would also be his ruination, and that both would come in the unlikely form of a young human woman. So this is actually really similar to how The Serpent and the Wings of Night began, if you remember that first
Yes.
sentence. What I love about this book, though, is that the interludes, and so this sentence, for example, is from Rain's POV, and it has Rain's backstory, and that's such a cool part of this book, is learning more about who Rain is and where he came from,
For
and everything
sure.
that makes him Rain Ashraj. So I love it.
I'm excited. So excited for Rain.
Well, and someone who's not excited for Rain is Oraya. She is not on the Rain train right now.
A Rain Train. Make that a
Yes,
shirt.
make that a thing. You know, you have to give her kind of a pass because she is grieving hardcore when this book opens.
Yes.
She is really grieving Vincent. And there's this one part, I didn't write the exact quote down, but she's talking about Kyrus, and she mentions how she knows that Kyrus wants her dead. And then she makes a comment after saying sometimes she wants herself dead too. And so I feel like that is a great show. Don't tell that she is just really struggling at the beginning of this book.
I mean, if
Rightfully
we
so.
remember how the last book ended, I can see why she'd be struggling.
Yeah, I remember at the end of Serpent, she basically says, you know, I lost my father, my kingdom, my identity, because she
Yes.
got married. Anyway, she's still in that mindset where things are not good. And Rain comes and tells her that they have a meeting to go to, which is what everyone wants to hear when they're having a bad day. And Oraya can tell that Rain is actually very nervous about whatever this meeting is, despite the cool Nightborn King act he's been
Right.
putting on lately. And so they go to the throne room, and when they get there, you mentioned this in the recap, and it was so funny. Kyrus tries to put Oraya like off in the toddler corner, like, here's
Yes.
your little seat. But Rain is like, you're gonna sit up here with me. So he puts her right there next to the throne with him, and I love that part.
I do too.
And then, you know, before the meeting actually starts, somebody saunters in with his cigarillo.
Our favorite Septimus.
Favorite Septimus, because his book is coming out in August, and because of all the things that happen that we can't talk about yet in Fallen, I am on a hardcore Septimus watch during this coverage of Ashes. So anytime Septimus appears or says something or does something, we are going to talk about it because I feel like it's going to be important. So
That's right.
Septimus watch number 1. Here he is with his cigarillo in the throne room. And then all the Raihn nobles come in. That's like the real reason for this meeting is Rain is meeting with the Raihn nobles as the new king. And no one is enthusiastic about it because they still see him as a turned slave. These people were literally in Nekulai's court and saw Rain as this slave, and some of them even participated in Rain's abuse as a slave.
Right.
So that's how they see him. This whole experience that Rain has in the throne room scene made me think about how sometimes in life people do not let you change and they just see you like a certain way forever.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking about as I read this. That's a thing.
No,
right?
it is a thing. Sometimes people's perceptions can't be changed right away.
Yes. No, I love that. That was a good word choice. Perceptions. They have this version of you that
Yes.
maybe they created originally, or maybe you really did used to be that way, but now you've changed. But sometimes people will not let go of that first version of somebody, or they are totally blind to other things about you. They just
Agreed.
can't see it. So,
Right.
and that's what's going on with Rain. I feel like he has all these strengths, all of these qualities that could make him a wonderful and amazing ruler,
Right.
but they just don't see it.
No.
So he really, in this moment, commits to being a ruthless Nightborn king because he feels like that's what has to happen to get them to be loyal to him.
Right.
And there's this guy named Martis who...
Martis.
Martis. He refuses to bow to Raihn because, he used to be a slave, blah, blah, blah. And also, Martis has an older brother named Simon, who actually was supposed to come to this meeting, but did not deem it worthy of his time. So he sent Martis in his place. And they mentioned that Simon thinks he should be the king.
Right. Which makes zero sense because of the Kajari and everything.
Yes. Neculi didn't have a son, right? Or daughter, no children to be the heir. So I could see why at one point they maybe thought they would be a logical successor to Neculi.
Right.
But you would think that after Neculi died and they didn't randomly sprout an heir mark that they would know they're out of the running.
Right.
But I don't know.
Kind of self-explanatory, but yeah.
Right. I think actually at one point, Raihn even makes a comment, because I think one of his advisors is like, well, we have to do this so that the nobles will be convinced of your power or be loyal to you. And he's like, I have an heir mark branded into my skin. I have a blessing from a goddess. I killed the previous king. I don't think they're going to be convinced. What else do you want me to do?
That's my king. I'm like, on a world stage, killed the other king. I mean, pretty.
Anyway, these people just sound kind of stupid, is I guess the bottom line.
Big egos.
Big egos. Which makes it kind of amazing that Raihn keeps his composure during the conversation with Martis. That is until Martis goes as far as to insult Oraya. He calls her Vincent's whore and some other things. But yes, that's where this douchebag kind of crosses the line for Raihn.
No, for sure, because he, like you said, refers to Oraya as Vincent's whore and crude comments. And that result was basically Raihn instinctively being protective of Oraya. Boom. Dead. Don't do that. Asterisk made an appearance and no more Martis. So
Martis is no more.
No more Martis. Shoot. And he it's so funny because Raihn actually admits to himself that he may not be good at court politics, but he's really good at killing. It made me laugh. I was like, you're not wrong.
Like I said, we all have our strengths. So
killing people is Raihn. Very efficient at that. And there's actually like this brief moment in that scene where he looks over his shoulder at Oraya, and I absolutely love the passage that was written about this. I'm going to read it. Raihn says, "The look on Araya's face struck me. Satisfaction, bloodthirsty satisfaction. The first time in weeks I'd seen something that looked like fight in her eyes. Goddess, I could have wept for it. There she is, I thought, and something about the way she stared at me, right in the eyes, speared through my costume and my performance. I could practically hear her saying it too. There he is. So good. And there he is." And I love that because, as we know, she has not been happy with him, but they see each other for the real versions of each other. And I love that even with everything going on, they still kind of have that. Unfortunately, even after Raihn beheads Martis, the rest of the nobles aren't eager to bow still until a certain Rishon general bursts through the door, rushes to the foot of the dais, and immediately kneels in the puddle of Martis's blood, which I love that, and his wife with curly chestnut brown hair lingering in the back. Any guesses? Any guesses?
I have a guess. I won't say it.
Welcome back to the chat, Vilith and Vale. Vilith? Welcome back to the chat.
That can be their couple name. Vilith. It's better than Lael. Yeah, it has to be. Yeah. It has to be Vilith.
Vale and Lilith. And I love this. And it's so great because if you've read Six Scorched Roses, you know the journey Vale has gone on to get to this point has been pretty crazy. And originally he said he would never serve under Raihn. And so here he is with his turned wife pledging his loyalty. I'm just so excited to see them again so soon.
Yes. And like I have told you in the past, I did not read Six Scorched Roses the first time I read this book because I didn't know it existed. And I remember reading this and I was kind of like, okay, like who's Vale?
Why is he so important?
Yeah, but, you know, on my reread, when I had read Six Scorched Roses, this moment was so much better because, like you pointed out, I knew the backstory and I knew who these people were. So it made the moment that
Yes.
much better.
Well, that's why I like reading after you've already read stuff, because then you can tell me exactly how I need to read everything.
I am happy to help. My pleasure, as they say at Chick-fil-A. Thanks to Vale, the other nobles do finally bow
Right.
because remember, Vale also was part of Neculai's court. So
Right.
they have that previous relationship, and that's kind of what they needed. The final piece of encouragement, I guess they needed. And a little while after this very dramatic meeting, Oraya is back in her room and she's actually trying to break out of her room. And the reason for that is she noticed as they locked her door that they forgot 2 of the locks. There's 4 locks and she always pays attention to the click, 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 click. But on this particular instance, there were only 2 clicks. And so she's
Right.
like, sweet, I can break 2 locks.
Right.
This is kind of funny because she uses an earring to break one of them, and then she can't get it to work on the last one that's still locked. And as she's struggling with it, she hears Vincent's voice, and he tells her she has power stronger than the earring to break this lock. So this kicks off this book's version of Oraya always hearing Vincent in her head. Feel like it's a little different because he's deceased.
Right.
You know, in Serpent, it was always like her inner monologue was spoken in Vincent's voice.
Right.
And that's definitely still part of her story here in Ashes and part of her grieving and all the complicated things that come with that. But I feel like his voice showing up now is different. I don't know. I'm
No,
just
it
gonna put
definitely
that out
is.
there.
Well, because I also feel like in Serpent wasn't always positive or
Yes.
what's the word? Encouraging at all. It was always kind of like demeaning, and I feel like in this book there's more encouragement from him. I just feel
Yes.
like the tone of his voice is different this book.
I agree. And long story short, this encouragement from Vincent helps her summon her Nightfire magic,
Right.
and she breaks the lock that way, which I remember thinking when I read Serpent, couldn't she just break the locks open with her Nightfire?
It always makes me laugh in some of these romantasy books because it's these magical kingdoms and fae, and we have vampires and this and that, but then they're also so medieval with some things that it's like,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I love it. I'm not mad about it,
Yes.
but I agree with your thought there.
Vincent and I were on the same page. The Nightfire was the way to bust out of
Yeah.
the room.
Yeah.
Which she does, and then she uses some secret tunnels that she knew about from growing
Right.
up in this castle.
Right.
And she ends up in Vincent's study. And I believe that this study was not in the main part of the castle. It was kind of underground.
Right.
And when she goes in there, she is overwhelmed by a sense of Vincent because his things are there. And it's as if they are where he left them when he was last there. She mentions there's even a glass with his fingerprints on it. So she is really just hit by this moment of grief. And I wanted to read what she says because it's so tender. It says this: even losing Ilana hadn't prepared me for this, the sheer degree of obsession that grief forces upon you. It took everything I had to force my mind to think about something other than him. It had exhausted me so completely, but now that I was here, surrounded by him, I never wanted to leave. I wanted to curl up in this chair. I wanted to cocoon myself in the coat, left casually slung over one of the armchairs. I wanted to wrap this wine glass in silk and preserve his fingerprints forever. I have not read many descriptions of grief that capture it quite like that. I thought that that was a really powerful way to describe what grieving feels
For
like.
sure. I love like where she said like it took everything to force my mind to think about something else and it was exhausting. And I think that that's so true, and there's not a better way to put it, like, because I think grief is emotionally exhausting, but that's the best way to put it, is because you're forcing yourself to not think about it, and that's hard.
Yeah.
I feel for Araya in this. I think too, you always think of how you would react when something like that happens, but you don't actually know until you experience it. So poor Araya.
Yeah, that's so
Poor
hard.
girl.
I
Oh
feel
yeah.
bad for her.
Right. Well, in true Vincent fashion, Araya actually finds something that makes her swing from love to anger pretty rapidly. A report about the destruction of her hometown, Salinay. And I think we talked about that in the first book a little bit. And on top of those papers, a little dagger she had made for him as a child.
Seriously, the juxtaposition of these things
I
perfectly
really, though.
describes her complicated relationship with Vincent. But
To a
yes,
T.
Salonay was where she and Raihn ended up during one of the Kajari trials.
right.
And it was the whole cave scene happens
That's
in
right.
Salonay. But Vincent basically destroyed that
Yes.
place after he
Knowing.
had told her she could go back there someday.
Exactly.
So that's
Yeah.
why it's such a like triggering thing
Yes.
for her to see underneath her childhood dagger she made for her father.
I know. Still torturing her a little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
that love-hate Oraya and the rest of us have for Vincent isn't going away
No.
just yet. It's alive and well in this book, unlike Vincent.
Shouldn't be funny, but it is.
It is for right now. Oraya finds a pile of broken glass on his desk, and when she cuts her finger on it, spilling some blood, it actually turns into this communication device that connects her to Jasmine. And however, her chat with Jasmine is cut short because she hears voices and footsteps in the hallway. So,
Right.
despite her attempt to hide, she actually went under the desk. Raihn comes in and finds her. And of course, they start arguing, and during which Raihn reveals he can hear Oraya crying in her room every night. Could you imagine?
I remember reading that and being like, oh, Raihn, you should not have said that.
Like, not the right time. Not the right time.
Nope. Like, Oraya of all people does not want to be told that these really vulnerable feelings
Right.
are not totally private. So
Not totally. And like, do you remember how she feels about you right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So-
there better not be. There is a dagger on the desk. We know that. So you better be careful.
Careful.
Raihn.
Right. So he shares that with her. And then he also shares that he doesn't want to be king. He hates the castle because of what happened to him here. He hates the nobles, but he doesn't hate Oraya. And in fact, according to him, he can't rule without her, which is interesting. And Oraya actually responds with a really creative outburst. You killed my father. She finally said it, right? Though she
Rehash this again.
Let's go over it again. And though
Yeah.
she admits to herself that she understands why Raihn did what he did, he recognizes he quite literally died so he could avoid making that choice and putting her in this position. But their conversation quickly ends with Oraya telling Raihn to walk her back to her room. She is in no mood.
No, still not on the Raihn train.
No. Whitney, that is like my favorite thing ever, the Raihn train. I love that.
I never got off the Raihn train, but that's fine. Once Oraya is alone in her room, she gets out that little mirror communication device and is able to connect with Jasmine. So Jasmine gives her a little update, tells her that they've lost a lot of their strongholds and they're struggling against these bloodborne soldiers. Remember, there was kind of a deal with Septimus
Yes.
to help Raihn out by using the bloodborne soldiers. Anyway, they have this shaky, weird alliance.
Yeah, there's a
But-
lot happening in the kingdom right now. Yeah.
Right. Basically, the Rishon don't have the military power to compete with the Hiyaj on their own, so that's where the Bloodborne are coming in and helping out. But yeah, Jasmine says that the Bloodborne are really making things difficult, and Oraya remembers that she overheard Septimus tell his guards about an attack in Misrata. I should have looked up that to see if I'm saying it right. Misrata.
Same.
We'll go with Misrata in 2 weeks, and the forces will be pulled from the armory to do this attack. And Jasmine and Oraya hatch a plan to evacuate their people from Misrata and attack the Rishon armory when it's left unguarded.
Right.
So that is their plan.
Yes.
The conversation ends with Oraya resolving to take action. And I love that Jasmine is bringing this out of her. Remember
Yes.
at the end of The Serpent and the Wings of Night when she shows up at the castle and talks to Oraya, it was that conversation with Jasmine that kind of snapped Oraya out of her depressive fog, which, again,
Right.
she just lost Vincent. We get it.
Right.
But that was the first moment she had some fight in her at the end of Serpent. Same thing
Yes.
here. Jasmine
Yes.
kind of brings that out of her again, and I love that. And when Oraya asks Jasmine if they can actually pull off this attack, Jasmine says, "It will be tight, but we have enough to try." And that's where we got our affirmation today. We have
love it.
enough to try. Again, funny enough, Jasmine gave us our last affirmation at the end of Serpent. So
It's true. It's true.
She is just on fire here. But I love the message of we have enough to try. I often fall into this all or nothing thinking trap where I think I have to have something completely figured out or
Yeah.
a guaranteed home run type of success. And if I don't, it makes me not even want to attempt.
I'm
So,
there with you.
but, so much growth happens when we try and then we struggle and then we try again. That's how we learn things and that's how we grow. And so these words from Jasmine, I think, are really meaningful because we always have enough to just try. Like, just
For
try.
sure.
Just give it a try.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. And I think there's a reason we picked it as the affirmation, right? It's just inspiring.
Yeah. So when we say affirmation, we hope for it to be a phrase that you can just bring to your mind when you need it. So
Yeah.
that's why we have the printables too. So
Yes.
when you're having a day where you're feeling overwhelmed because you don't have things completely figured out, this is a phrase, we have enough to try. We always have enough to try.
But I guess definitely one I'll use with my kids. Like, you can
Yeah.
try. You have enough to try, right?
Well, that's the thing is I do use it with my kids.
Yeah.
I often talk to them about how important it is to fail at things because that's when we learn.
Right.
It's just that I struggle to apply it to myself.
Isn't that the truth, though?
Yes.
Tell my daughter things sometimes. I'm like, am I telling her this or am I telling myself?
It's a little of both, and that's okay.
Right. Well, Oraya responds to Jasmine with this. Then do it. Enough running, enough defending. We don't have time for half measures. It was time to fight. I love this. And we don't have time for half measures. So good. Carissa Broadbent's way of saying go big or go home, right?
Yes.
As much as
Carissa Broadbent does that all the time. Like
Right.
she'll have these beautifully crafted phrases that basically are a really common saying, but she worded it in the most beautiful way. So instead
Right.
of saying go big or go home, we don't have time for half measures. I love it. Okay, let's do this.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
Love it. So as much as we want Oraya to admit she loves Raihn right now, you can't help but root for her in this moment. She's not crumbling into a puddle of tears in her room, and she's finally taking action. And it will be fun to discuss how her plans play out in the next episode.
Yes, in the next episode.
In the next episode, we're ending here where Carissa ended part 1 of the book titled Night. And similar to Serpent and Roses, she divided the book into sections, beginning with night and going through the phases of the moon and ending with dawn. So fitting that, this is the night section. Oraya and Raihn are personally in dark places.
It's true. It's true.
That's always so fitting.
That's a great point.
That's where we end our exploration for today. One of the best parts of reading is learning things that help us with this messy adventure we call life. And each episode, we're going to share a true story that connects us to lessons learned in the chapters we read. So I always love our affirmations, and I feel like that's where I pull some of my stories from because I just think they're so applicable. I want to share a little bit, this totally includes you, Whitney, about I don't know if deciding to fight, but deciding to fight and just being willing to try. I think for years we've had our little Waco trips and we've always wanted to do something together. And we've thought of different things. And then I guess, was it a year ago? Not even a year ago, we decided a podcast. Let's do a podcast, right? Tossing the idea around and laughing about her. And I was like, is anyone ever going to actually listen to this? And I'm just so happy we've tried because look at us. We're on book 3. We've done a special episode with the 13. No perfect plan, no perfect timing, just effort and a lot of effort on your end and some courage. And it has been so fun. And it's become something I look forward to. And it's something that fills me up and it's something I'm really proud of. And I know trying doesn't mean that you know exactly what you're doing. It just means you're willing to show up and put in the effort. And I've had so much fun doing this. So thank you for making me try. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, I feel like we're having a moment. Thank you for being willing to try. It has been so fun. And this actually is a great example of me being afraid to do something because I don't have it all figured out. So I'm glad that you and Griffin gave the extra push to
Big kudos
just
to
do it
Griffin.
for fun. Yes, just do it for fun and enjoy it. And it really has been a source of joy, something to keep us connected and talking about things
Yes.
we love. And also, I've learned a lot too. So, like we were talking about before, you have to try and fail, and that's when you learn new things. And that's absolutely happened.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
what a great application of our real lives to reading today. Thank you.
Yes. No, thank you. And
So
speaking of
good.
thank yous, before we let go, let's also take a moment to express gratitude to a character who we admire from this stretch of chapters. And today's note is for Vale. So here it goes. Dear Vale, thank you for stepping into that throne room at the exact moment Raihn needed someone to believe in him. In a world built on blood, betrayal, and ancient grudges, you chose something far rarer: trust. Thank you for laying aside old prejudices, old wounds, and the fears carved into your history. For choosing to believe in a new king and a new future, even when every instinct in you whispered caution. And thank you for listening to your wife, the one person who saw the heart beneath your armor and reminded you that doing the right thing sometimes means risking the past to protect the future. Because of that choice, everything changed. You showed us that redemption isn't a single heroic moment. It's a decision made over and over again to be better than what came before. So from your friends at Romantasy Remedy, Vale, thank you.
Yay, Vale.
Love
Vilith.
them.
Both
Vilith.
of them.
Yeah, feel like that should be Dear Vilith.
Yes. I love that he gets the thank you note today because even though his moment is kind of short in the first part of the book, it is such a crucial moment for Raihn. And again, like we talked about earlier, the journey of him getting to that point to support a king who used to be human and as a turned vampire is a huge deal. But he's married to a turned vampire now, so
and just
it makes sense.
Impeccable timing.
Yes, very good timing. Very good timing. Well, we have reached the end of the main portion of our episode. Thank you so much for listening. Look for Romantasy Remedy on Instagram and TikTok. Check the show notes for those links, as well as links to the printable affirmation and soundtrack playlist on Spotify. I am a weird kind of person who will hear a song and be like, this song reminds me of Vale and Lilith or Raihn and Oraya. I don't know if there are other people in the world like me, but if there are, this is what I've made for you is a soundtrack playlist that goes with the Ashes and the Star-Cursed King.
And you're so good at it. You're so good at it.
Oh my gosh. It's really just like a weird quirk/hobby that I have.
I love it.
But there's also one for Six Scorched Roses and The Serpent and the Wings of Night. So
I love them.
If you enjoy that kind of thing, go check them out.
Yes. And we're really looking forward to connecting with you and nerding out over all the best romantasy. So after this, we'll begin the spoiler central segment of the episode, which you shouldn't listen to if you haven't finished the entire series, including the rest of this book. We're totally those book besties where one of us reads at a normal speed and one of us reads faster than you can winnow from here to Valaris. Since Whitney is the speed reader, I'm going to duck out while she does Spoiler Central.
All right, you've been warned. Here come the spoilers. I don't have a ton for Spoiler Central today, but there will be lots coming as we get further into this book and we start interacting more with these characters, and we can get into lots of things with later books in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. But for today, I mainly am going to focus on some things that foreshadow events later in this book, The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. So in the prologue, it has a brief phrase at the end where it talks about the king dying a second time. And once you finish the book, you realize that this is foreshadowing of the end, where Raihn is almost dead and is only saved by Oraya asking for a Coriolis bond, first from Nyaxia, and she refuses it, and then from Acacia, who grants it, and that's what ends up saving his life. But when we read the prologue and it talks about him dying the second time, foreshadowing to that moment at the end of The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. And then I just wanted to mention two people who we're introduced to in this first section of the book. Kyrus. Actually, we met Kyrus in The Serpent and the Wings of Night, but we get to know him better in The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. Kyrus is one of Rain's inner circle. He's basically an advisor, and he makes it very clear in these opening chapters that he does not like Oraya, but we assume that he is loyal to Rain. However, once you have read this book and you're doing a reread, you're kind of watching for any behaviors or clues that he's going to betray Rain, because we know that he does. We know that he is the one who works with Septimus and Simon and ends up betraying Rain hardcore in The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. So just wanted to mention that as we are seeing Kyrus in these opening chapters. And then the other character I want to mention, I kind of already did, is Simon. We don't actually see him in these opening chapters because, remember, he sends his brother Martis in his place because he just doesn't think this is worth his time to go and meet Rain. But Simon, of course, ends up being a big player in this book. He is the one who works to also betray Rain and ends up actually using the god teeth and all of that nasty business. So even though we don't see him in person, he is mentioned for the first time in these opening chapters. His brother Martis mentions him, and definitely a name to look out for as you continue reading The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. So, like I said, a very, very short spoiler central today, but episode 2 is longer, and I am excited to get into that. So when you're ready, listen to episode 2 and definitely listen to the entire thing so you can get to Spoiler Central, and we can talk about all of these great connections throughout the whole Crowns of Nyaxia series. Thanks again for listening to Romantasy Remedy. Please tune in for our next episode. Thanks. Bye.